I'm George Mann from Ithaca, New York.
And I'm Rik Palieri from over in Heinsberg, Vermont.
And why are you here in Minneapolis?
We're singing tonight for a concert sponsored by the Communication Workers of America, the Minnesota State Council, and it's part of the Almanac Trail tour that we've been on the road for almost a month now. 3 more concerts and we get home, celebrating the music of Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger and the Almanac Singers that they made in 1941, and the tour they made in 1941.
And they were basically promoting unions at that time. That's very heavily union.
They were unofficial, but they were working and helping to try to get people behind the CIO. So all their concerts were in union halls. Not every concert, but most of their concerts were in union halls back in 1941.
And they traveled the country starting basically the same route that we're following 70-something years later. They started in Pittsburgh, went all the way to California, north to Seattle, and then turned back and came back through the Northwest. And that's basically the route that we followed for the last month.
Well, there's 2 different routes, you see. The original Almanac Singer route went from Pittsburgh because they were playing for Harry Bridges down, in the San Francisco area. So it was really trying to get through to that concert. And then what happened was that the band kind of broke up a little bit, and Woody and Pete, they continued doing some of the shows, and they went up through the Pacific Northwest and all the way across and through Butte, Montana. So we've combined both of those tours to make this Almanac Trail.
And you, on your album, you have Pete Seeger.
Yes.
How much fun was that, working with Pete Seeger?
Oh, it was absolutely incredible. I've known Pete for a long time. I wanted to do this 30 years ago. And Pete was all fired up about it 30 years ago. And he gave me a whole list. He wrote a 2-page letter. And he had all the places he could remember. And I tried to do that back in the 1980s, but I never could really get it going. And when I met George Mann, I showed him the letter. And then together we started thinking about, we could do this. And with George's union background, we were able to pull it off.
What attracts you to singing about union?
Well, I was a union organizer for many years, mostly with the Musicians Union, but also worked with the Communication Workers who were sponsoring tonight's concert. And through that work, I became more acquainted with the music of Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger and Utah Phillips and the IWW, Industrial Workers of the World, the proud union of one of which I belong to. I'm also a member, as Rick is, with the Musicians Union, Local 1000. But those songs, they are resonating 70 years later. They always resonated to me from the time I first heard them 20, 30 years ago when I was a kid. Because they tell great stories. They're not about fluff. They're not "Honey, you left me and broke my heart," that kind of songs. They're songs about events in history where people stood up for their rights, took great risks, and experienced great danger in order to secure the rights to a fair shake in the workplace. And that's one reason the music is so important now, because unions are under attack all over the country, just as they were 30, 40, 70 years ago when they were first starting out.
Do you get the same kind of threats that they do?
No, we're just a rumor. No, the days of lynching and shooting and beating up union organizers have pretty much passed, thankfully, because it is the law of the land. The law of the land was passed in 1935, the National Labor Relations Act, federal law that President Roosevelt signed, saying we have a right to unions in the workplace. It took many years of struggle and battle until those rights were secured or at least guaranteed. So violence is no longer really a threat per se, but there's a different type of violence, economic violence. 1 out of 4 workers who gets active in a union organizing drive gets fired by the boss. The plant often closes or threatens to close or reduces the workforce once they realize that workers are trying to organize. So that violence is just as intense. It's just not physical. It's economic and it's emotional and psychological violence. We have these rights in this country, but they're pretty weak. The law is very weak. Employers do this almost with impunity all the time. And the amount of effort it takes to get a union in and then get a contract is really a great amount of effort and struggle.
And do you think rising up singing will help?
Well, you know, I think that we are seeing the seeds planted from this tour that might surprise one. You know, I mean, it was we weren't really sure what was going to happen by trying to follow this old Almanac Singers route. But we're finding that everywhere we go, we're planting a few seeds. When we were in Kansas City, at the end of the show, they said, you know, we used to get together once a month and sing labor songs. I think we're going to start that up again. So it's small steps. Every place that we went, they were surprised. They were surprised to hear the history. Because this is not about just the music. I mean, this program, as you said, I sat down with Pete Seeger. We did 2 major interviews together. One we did at his house, and then I had to go back again to kind of get a few more details. At 94, sometimes you know, you have to approach it a couple of different ways. So the last time I was with him was May 15th, and we sat in my pickup truck for 2 hours and went over the tour once again. And then I spent a full day at the Woody Guthrie archives, going through Woody's papers from 1941, through papers from Lee Hays and Millard Lampell, and Pete, of course, and even you know, Alan Lomax, because there's a lot of correspondence between Woody and Alan Lomax, and trying to piece together the puzzle of this tour. And you were asking before, like, why was I excited about this? For me, it's a bit of more of a romance kind of idea, where when I was a young kid and I read about this tour in Pete's Incomplete Folk Singer, it was only a paragraph. It was only a paragraph, but it was really exciting, and it was, you know, to me it was back before, you know, Jack Kerouac hit the road and had all these adventures. There were these 4 bohemians in a 1932 midnight blue Buick, going from Union Hall to Union Hall to Union Hall, spreading their message. And I also wanted to give thanks to Pete by honoring his first group. The first group that Pete was in was the Almanac Singers, and so that's why this whole idea came about.
There's one other point on this I want to point out. It's not just the idea of planting seeds, it's also the idea of reinvigorating those who are working in the trenches. I mean, the people who've been coming to our concerts, most of them are dedicated, lifelong trade unionists. Sure, there are some people who come just because they hear about it in the local paper, or maybe saw a poster. But the majority of our crowd at all the concerts have been active labor people. And what we see our job as is giving them a shot in the arm. Because nobody claps when they do their work. They don't get a standing ovation at the end of the night. They're out there doing the hard work of representing the workers in their unions and struggling against the power of the corporations. So that's really important too, to give them a shot in the arm and give them the courage to go on.
But we're also using new technology. And that's important, is that we funded part of the program with a Kickstarter, and we also use a video blog. So people can go to our website at almanactrail.com and they can watch the videos of what took place on this tour. You can see the people, you can see the interaction of what we're doing. We're just about to put another one up from the last chapter of our tour.
Cool.
Anything else?
Well, that was my question to you. Do you have anything, last words, anything that you want to say that you haven't said before?
Just that we hope people will check out the music and enjoy it. It's good organized music, it's good for the soul, and it tells important stories from our history.
Okay, and what's the website again?
It's almanactrail.com.
Okay, well, I'm going to stick around for your concert, I hope, tonight. I have your album, it looks great and sounds great. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave.